Good morning. My name is Tim Curran, and I'm the CEO of the GTDC. And I'm going to tell you more than you probably want to know about the GTDC and what we do. But we are the global trade association representing the largest technology distributors in the world. And I'll talk to you a little bit about who we are, what we do, what my members do, but most importantly, what distribution is doing today in the Internet of Things and in the services revolution that is changing the face of our industry. I'll speak for about 20-25 minutes, and then I have 5 distribution executives who will come to the stage and answer some of my questions and hopefully some of your questions, okay? I'm delighted with the crowd. I think it's appropriate because I think distribution is a key part of the ecosystem that we all live in. I come out of the distribution industry, was a senior distribution executive. Before that, I was a big vendor, was with a big vendor, but I've spent my entire career working with resellers. So this ecosystem of vendors, resellers, and distributors, I think is what makes this IT industry go, and I'm delighted that you're all here this morning for a conversation about the changes that are taking place. We have 19 members in the GTDC. They represent $135 billion in worldwide sales. You can see the names of the companies up there. Hopefully all of you work with one or more of these distribution entities, all big, successful companies that are continually introducing new capabilities, new programs, but a stable set of distribution entities. I am very proud of the group up there. During the downturn, not one of these companies got into financial difficulty. That's a testament to the excellence of management that runs these organizations. And as I say, I think they are a real asset for the channel and for all and this entire industry. The Internet of Things, the subject of this conference, we will be introducing, I'll speak for a few minutes about this topic. We're introducing a new study, and on my website, www.gtdc.org, we have a number of research reports which are available for download by vendors and resellers, so please make yourselves available. This Internet of Things report will be out in January 2016, but I have a few data points that we've already collected from the distribution executives that I'll show you now. The Internet of Things means a lot of changes for a lot of people and a complex definition, but the most important fact we all know is the extraordinary number of devices that are going to be introduced to the market that need to be connected, that need to be supported, that need to be integrated into total solutions. That's what we do, that's what you do. But it's a revolutionary change taking place, so we all need to understand what's happening and how this market is continuing to evolve. The internet industry that we all participate in is not changing and is not collapsing with this new development. And distribution has always been instrumental in delivering, supporting, and enabling new technologies, new vendors, and new resellers as the industry has gone through several waves of innovation over the last 15, 20 years. Nothing is going to change about the capability of distribution and the support they provide to the marketplace. We asked the GTDC executives, how big is the Internet of Everything, Internet of Things opportunity? As you can see up here, they think, the distribution executives think that this is going to be a huge opportunity for them and for you. What do they think are the biggest obstacles to this industry growing? You can see several things that don't surprise you. Identifying new market opportunities as new products come to market. Figuring out how to integrate IoT into existing IT systems. Convincing IoT vendors that the channel will be important to them. But the number one, as you can see, continuing, and this is always the issue, enabling partners to understand and implement IoT. Distribution's ability to enable partners, introduce them to new technologies, train them, finance them, make it possible for them to grow their businesses is what distribution does, and that will continue to be of value as this new revolution takes place, as new technologies, new vendors come to market. Distribution will always be focused on enabling their customers, the resellers, to implement multifaceted solutions and multi-vendor solutions across different geographies. But three major capabilities of distribution that have always been the capabilities of this industry will not change. For vendors, distribution offers incredible reach into every market around the world. With one relationship, several relationships, a vendor can get his or her products into any target market, vertical market, solution market, through the power and reach of these distributors. The scale of distribution, offering vendors a variable cost infrastructure, right? If you're going to market, you're trying to build a new market, a vendor has the option of A, building it himself, herself, but then, of course, they are fixed with a fixed cost infrastructure, that they have to dispose of when a downturn comes, and we know downturns come. But with distribution, there's always been the variable cost model to enabling a vendor to get that reach, get that access to the market with a variable cost system. Market goes down, he doesn't have to worry about disposing of assets. But for the reseller, it offers the multi-vendor integration, the ability with one-stop shopping. It's a classic capability of distribution and a basic value of distribution, one-stop shopping to get all of the products, software, services you need to implement a total solution and make your customers happy and successful. Limitless possibilities, we think, for the distribution industry, for the reseller channel, and for the vendors. Now, those things have always been there. What is now changing in distribution is distribution as a service is really taking off. And really, this is what our panel will discuss about the range and increased availability of distribution services to aid the vendor in their market programs and to aid the resellers to expand their reach and support for their end customers. This is the list of the current distribution services that are offered. Now, when I presented this slide at several conferences, the first reaction is, wow, I didn't know distribution did all of those things. It's no longer about pick, pack, and ship of boxes of standalone products. The distribution industry has deployed an amazing array of services to support you, to help you to grow this market together. Some of them are particularly important: demand generation, mobile device management, lifecycle management, cloud solutions and programs. Critically, education and training, network assessments, application engineering, software services consulting, asset disposition. It's not that you can't do any of these things yourself, but by working with a distributor, you extend your program, extend your support to your customer by leveraging this variable cost infrastructure that a distributor offers. This is there for you today, and this will continue to grow. And one of the questions we'll ask our panel to start is, where do they see the services palette of distribution going in the future? Distribution has also been historically successful at doing what we call the difficult or smelly things, the things we don't like to talk about, the credit checks, the compliance checks, the credit card expiration dates. Distribution checks these things, makes sure these things are not an implement, not a danger for the vendor and the reseller. And by taking care of these little things, these difficult things, they allow product to flow, services to flow, revenue to flow through to the market. They're not recognized for it, but these difficult things are one of the things that make the distribution industry successful. Now, I'll show you one of the things my group does is we collect from all of these distributors their sales out data down to the SKU level. So I'll show you some charts now about distribution sales in EMEA and at the country level based on an incredible flow of technology and sales to the channel across EMEA. These database partners are NPD, Context, and GfK, and I'll go through some of the data. Now, this is a little bit of an eye chart. but I'll zoom in on this with Prezi. This is looking at, we are tracking in excess of $1 billion a week in distribution hardware and software sales across the EMEA marketplace. You can see the jagged lines are weekly sales, and the horizontal lines are a 13-week moving average, smooths out the quarterly ends and shows you the underlying demand pattern of the industry. So you can see the horizontal lines have been growing. Look at the 2014 for all of you here in EMEA ended very, very strong. The 13-week trend ending in September, up 9.2%, ending in October 4th, 11.7%, ending on December 5, 8.8%, a real strong 2014. Now, as we look at 2015, it slowed down a bit, it softened a bit, 5% growth through the week of June 5, and then 5.8 growing again through the week of September 2. But clearly this market has improved, and you'll see at the country level, all countries, most countries are seeing an increase in their revenue. This data is available on our website and through the GTDC and our database partners. All major countries in Europe are improving. This is a 13-week trend ending on a specific date. So ending in January 2015, the 13-week trend, you can see some major countries in Europe were down. The UK down 4%, Germany down 2%, Finland down 4%. But as we got to August 2015, everything is improving. Spain up 17%, France up 15%, Germany up 6%, Norway up 29%. Things are really starting to percolate across the broad spectrum of products and technologies. And again, maybe our panel will talk about the demand picture that they see as distribution executives across this market. This is a real difficult eye chart, but what this is the product sectors in each of the countries. Starting on the left, Germany, then the UK and Ireland, Italy, France, Nordic, Spain, Poland, and the rest of Europe. But just look at the first one, Germany. What the point I'm making here is above the horizontal line is net positive growth for that product sector. And the point of this chart is look at the number of product sectors that are up. Everything is up. Almost nothing is down. So this building recovery is a multi-product improvement and a multi-country improvement. All major countries are seeing increases across a broad spectrum of technologies. This is reflecting your sales and the market sales, but this is obviously good news for the industry, good news for the distributors, and good news for the vendors that supply all of these products. Some products are down. You can see tablets in most countries are down, but the rest of the picture is quite positive for the EMEA channel. Ooh. There's my conclusion. Diverse drivers of growth across the region. So to conclude, this was an introduction of what distribution is doing. We're seeing today the distributors are gaining momentum, and the market is gaining momentum across a broad range of technologies and solutions. They are advancing services across the region and across the world as they develop their capability to support vendors and resellers in more diverse ways. They are helping and establishing alternative routes to market through different sales channels emerge. The distributors are enabling those sales channels. New resellers are emerging. We're enabling those new resellers in the cloud and in Internet of Things, making it possible for a new young company to scale up and grow. They are sharply focused on innovation. That list of services was developed listening to you and to their vendor partners. What do we need to help us grow this market more effectively? What can you do to help us? They've responded with that list of services that are deployed at a variable cost basis to their vendors and their solution provider customers. And they are committed to growing partnerships with you, the resellers, and the vendors as they grow this business together. The transforming in a new era. It's another iteration of the growth and evolution of the IT industry. I believe distribution is going to remain central as this transformation takes place, and I'm delighted to be here today, and I want to thank Canales for the opportunity to introduce the GTDC and some of our programs and research to you. Oh, I keep hitting the wrong button, Peter. This shows what we have available on our website. We do very effective, or it's rated as very effective, training for mainly vendors about how to leverage distribution. We have a number of, you can see the companies listed up here that have utilized our training. Some vendors and have brought their entire sales and marketing teams into our training program to better understand how do you work with the distributor? How do you best leverage it? And how do you avoid the common mistakes? You know, one of the slides in our program is 10 things that vendors do that drive distributors crazy, right? If you're not attuned to it, if you're not aware of it, you may implement a program not understanding how negatively it impacts a distributor P&L or a distributor balance sheet. So we train the vendors on how the distribution financial model works and how they can best achieve the success that they want. These are two recent research reports that are on our website, distribution reaching new heights with their cloud programs, and on the right, how resellers are implementing programs with the help of distribution to enable them in the cloud. And finally, we have a survey. If you see the link there, we're taking input from the channel, and so if you have the time to take a 2-minute survey, you can go to that link and understand and give us your voice on the Internet of Things revolution. I'm going to stop now. This is where you say, Tim, no, please go on. Please keep talking. I'm going to stop now because I have 5 distribution executives to answer your questions and my questions, to have them talk about what they see happening and how they see the market growing. So I'd like to stop and ask my panel to come to the stage. Please welcome up Anton Herbst, the CEO of Tarsus, based in South Africa, Graham Watt, the President EMEA for Avnet, Jesper Trolley, VP of Sales for EMEA for Arrow ECS, Michael Paparlakos, Executive Director of Logicom, based in Cyprus, and Simon England, VP of the Value-Added Business, Aslan for Tech Data in Europe. Oh, we didn't coordinate the seating. No, we're distribution, we're flexible, we can adapt, and I'm in charge, so the way I do it will be the right way, right? So, what we talked about in that presentation, I showed you that range of services. It's what I call the wow chart. When people see it, wow, I didn't know distribution did all that. So looking at that range of services that distributors now provide, many that are being utilized or underutilized by vendors and by resellers, what challenges do you typically face? And I'll go down the row on this one to get everybody's input. What challenges do you typically face as you introduce a new service to the market, to vendors and reseller partners? Michael, let's start with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I would say that typically the first challenge is to have channel and vendor alignment. Yeah, it's sometimes easy for us to put together a service, but then if we don't have done the right market research in advance, make sure that we have everybody's support to onboard this service, then clearly it cannot be successful. So I would say that definitely that's the number one thing we need to do first.
Okay. Yeah. Anton?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, the challenge we face quite often is that we've still got a lot of our resellers sitting in the legacy space. And as we introduce new services, we tend to be ahead of the market. And the challenge is then to how do we take our reseller base with us on this journey as we introduce new services? And similarly, I think some of our vendors, the newer kind of vendors, are actually slotting in earlier into the services models than what we have with our traditional vendors, which has got a large legacy business to transition. So it's a speed at which we can do things, and how do we get to scale quicker? Those are the challenges we face. Otherwise, it becomes quite costly for us.
Okay, Jesper?
Thank you. I agree. I think the scale is is one of the bigger problems. You know, in Europe we deal with smaller countries, smaller economies, so getting the scale out of services is absolutely critical. From a vendor perspective, I would say that if vendors create the room in the market for us to invest, we are very willing to invest and drive scale and enablement of the partner community and so on. But if vendors are not willing to kind of relinquish from the market on that service, it's not possible for us.
Simon?
I think, sorry Tim, but I'd like to turn the question around a little bit. I think the first thing here is to seriously understand that we are a service provider. And I think that goes to all of us. I think it goes into our own teams. I think it goes into the vendor representatives and yourselves, that we live in somewhat of a legacy thinking with each other. And Tim pointed up a whole series of services there. But as we engage and as we look deeper, we can do a lot more together. And I think that's the first thing to understand, and maybe an obstacle is just our existing limited thinking model, where vendors may feel they have to do it themselves because they want the control, where maybe you feel you have to do it yourselves because you feel that working together with a distributor could be leading even into a competitive landscape. That goes back into questions in terms of services strategies across different distributors. But if you look at us as a service provider and we identify together how we can support the business, I think that's the first big lever to unlock the potential. And then the next one is really around tailoring to the opportunity and being able to understand how could we build something bespoke for your environment. I think most of the distributors have the opportunity to do that nowadays. So I think believing it can be done and then assuming that it can be tailored toward your opportunity, I think those would be two big levers that would open up the bottleneck and serve all of us.
Graham?
Yeah, I'm kind of echoing some of the comments already made. I think, to your point, Simon, I think I would describe Avnet at any rate, and probably most of us, as sales, marketing, and services companies fundamentally. I think our biggest challenge is to make the services relevant to our partner community. I think when we started out in investing in services, the intention was very clear. We wanted to invest in adding value to our partners. We wanted to do it in a way that didn't compete with our partners and avoid any channel conflict. And perhaps when we invested in areas such as life cycle, education services, integration services, ERP consulting, a number of different areas. And we found that actually we probably started looking at it a little bit from the wrong angle. We should have started with the customers, the verticals our customers are working in, the value proposition that they're offering and need to offer, and then back into Avnet, well, what services, can we support that internally? Yes or no with the services we've already got? Can we grow our services to support our partners' needs, either develop it in-house or through M&A, or should we outsource it and back it off to a third party? So I think we've been through a learning curve. Services is extremely important for all of us in this room, but I think making it relevant to our partners' end-user business has been our biggest challenge.
Graham, a very good point. Let me stay with you and come back down the other way with two add-on questions in this services area. The question is, who better understands your services range, vendors or resellers? And the second part of that is, particularly with the resellers, there is the speculation that distribution services will encroach on reseller programs. So is that perception real, or what's your thought on that?
Well, I'll answer the second one, and maybe somebody else can talk to first or the second question. You know, honestly speaking, in our experience, we have had some isolated cases where we've got into channel conflict situations. But at the end of the day, that's absolutely not our intent. Our intent is to build the services and continue to build and invest in services to support, as I've already said, our partners' business into their end users and create business solutions together. We're there to, you know, people don't have to take our services. We offer a menu of services and products and solutions and technical expertise, and it's up to our partners which of those, you know, offerings they work with us on. I think where we have, as I say, on one or two and these are quite historic as well, not at all current, where we've got into conflict situations or we think that there could be conflict, we've either stepped aside or in some cases we've created teaming arrangements with our partners. So I think across Europe now we've got about 15 or 20 teaming arrangements. So where we have identified clear overlap, again, we're not there to compete with our partners, we're there to support them. We have teaming arrangements, and so depending on who finds the opportunity and how we want to then deliver to the opportunity, we have teaming arrangements that are very structured and you know, take away that conflict. So.
Okay, Simon?
Yeah, to make a very clear statement there on behalf of Tech Data and specifically also the value business, the Aslan business, we do not look at services as a profit center of its own, full stop. Services for us serves business enablement, if you think of operational services and what we do there, which I think is going to be an upgraded area of requirement just because of the operational challenge these new models create. And then it's business development. It's a business development asset in accelerating the business. So from our side, we have a clear-cut view there. There has been a services acquisition in the US. We've made it very clear. There's no ambiguity there. For us, it's very clear. This is an asset that we want to go through the channel, and we don't want to do on our own. And yes, we want to be supporting in a way that we're enabling partners to build and supporting partners to build their own practices and not hold a continuous revenue stream in our own to maintain what we're doing there. It's a business development asset. It needs to keep on being investing in the business. We're not in the head leasing business. We're not in the competitive business.
So I try and answer the first question.
Okay.
I think on the vendor side, I think it varies the understanding of the services. I think generally the smaller the vendor, it's relative to their strengths, their strategy. Smaller vendors tend to have a better appreciation for the services we do deliver. Oftentimes they don't have the capabilities, whereas the larger suppliers tend to have many of the same services. On the partner side, I would say there is a good understanding for the services, the traditional services, business development services, deployment services. And I believe partners are picking up what's complementary to their own capabilities and what they can use to close the business out faster.
Okay, Anton, thank you.
I think from our perspective, because I think we're not as sophisticated maybe in our markets, and if you go into Africa, the markets are even less sophisticated. But having said that, I think what people are doing is, a lot of the cases in Africa, there is no legacy. So they can transition much faster into the services models because they don't have to worry about the legacy systems. But I think our core belief is that we don't want to compete with the channel. But if we are moving away from a linear supply chain model and we are starting to move into a collaborative model, the question is who does what in their engagements. And I think if we are clear about that, then we can limit the conflict. We also are seeing that in the case of our partners, in the past where we used to, because the technology is changing so quickly and there's so many new vendors coming to market and new products and new solutions, what we are starting to do is we're starting to aggregate skill on behalf of the channel because they don't have the capability up front to have it. But our intent is not to keep that forever for ourselves, but for actually to help them on board, transition the skills to them, and then we can go to the next new entrance into the market. And that's the model we've engaged with. And I think so far the channel conflict has been limited.
All right, thank you, Anton. Michael?
Yeah, thanks. I would say that Logicom's perspective is very similar to what Anton has shared in the Middle East and in Southeast Europe. I would say that the services that are out there in the market today from us are primarily driven by vendors and what technology vendors need to do more. So they don't have the same scale that they have in mature markets, like in Europe. They need additional support. So we offer some break fix, for example, or we offer telesales or branding, consulting, and support to the resellers. And we drive these kind of programs always mindful of any conflict that might come up. I think that still in emerging markets there's so much room to grow that I think we haven't reached those points where we see the conflict yet.
Okay, Michael, I'll stick with you for the next question, but I'll ask one more follow-up on services and then throw it to the audience to see if you have any services-related questions, and then I'll move on to some other topics. So do you see, Michael, a day when profitability from services sales becomes larger than your product sales? Do you see, over time, services becomes a bigger and bigger part of your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably more relevant for my colleagues from more mature markets. I thought of that question. And I think that fortunately or unfortunately, hardware will continue to be what will drive the majority of our business today. And actually, the ability to sell services, as Samuel was saying earlier, sometimes we offer those services without any cost. We have to offer them in order to generate more business for us and for our partners. So I don't see that the profitability from the services anytime soon will match simply because of the scale of the business and because we are coming from primarily emerging markets.
Okay. Jesper, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, today, I would say services for Arrow is already it's a growing part of the profitability. I think we all know the margins on pure product sale, point product sale is not going to go up. So it's a big part. We take services very seriously. As we mine our install base and enable the software-based solutions, we are driving a lot of enablement, a lot of new services around customer entanglement and supplier entanglement, to be honest. So yeah, it's. I'm not sure it will be bigger, but it's becoming bigger and bigger.
Okay. Simon, any final comments?
Yeah, again, I think there's a bit of a naming convention here we have to understand. The service we provide to you is our business. That's what we do. We monetize what we do today by taking a product, taking title to the product, adding a margin to it. But you pay us a margin, the vendors allow us to have a margin or support our margin for what we do. If we charge for what we do independent of the transaction, it's still the same thing we do, so it saves our business. We want you to rely on us, we want you to innovate with us, we want to be able to engage with you. That's where we derive our value for you, and that's where we derive our profit. I could imagine that the ways of monetizing what we do will change. I can see us potentially in other ways, other models together with the vendors. Where the majority of our business stays that way, that we take title to a product, I believe that we'll be continuing to retain the highest degree of our profit through that, even if the services piece that we'll be doing across the various areas will be adding to that. But again, the services we provide is the business that gives us the right to exist, that gives us the right to move on, and that's what you're paying us for. And I think the naming convention, just defining everything else is services and the core not as services, I think that's wrong. That's where we stand. That's what we stand and die for you, actually.
Any comments, Graham?
Nothing really to add other than services is clearly growing in importance for all of us. Whether you're a supplier, a business partner, or a distributor, it's going to become an increasing part of what we do. As Jesper said, the margins, particularly on hardware, have commoditized. Hardware's commoditized so much now that when you're offering an end-to-end solution, the services component is becoming larger and more important.
Maybe I just had a very quick half line on that one, Tim. Going back to Tim's point, if our job is to enable you, and that's where we can provide value. If our job is helping you be successful and your success being our success, whether a vendor or whether a partner, then of course, as that model changes, as Graham described, and more of your profit will come from services, then our job will be to help you develop those service practices and develop those new solutions. It will naturally change because we stay in that role where our true product, probably for all of us, is partnership with you. It's not what we sell, it's actually our partnership is the product we try to bring alive.
Well, any questions on this topic? We have a mic. Please let us know who you are and we'll take the questions.
Chris Gabriel, Chief Technology Officer for Logicalis in Europe. I had a comment and then a two-part question, if that's all right. The first comment was, rather than add as a service on the end to try and redefine distribution, it might be worth changing the first name because distribution just is logistics, right? And I don't think you guys, the name undervalues potentially what the distribution market does now, so that's just a comment. Your marketing people might want to look at that. The question was two parts. The most difficult thing in our business around distribution is if I see the value from the CTO or the marketing and sales side, is our services organization has the tension of wanting to do it all themselves and not being able to integrate properly with distribution. And I'm just wondering whether you guys have any metrics of partners, whether they engage with you highly on services and what happens to their top line, bottom line. If you monitor the value of working with distribution on services, how that reflects in the amount of product the partners buy. So I don't know if you benchmark that. It'd be interesting to look at that, because there must be some metrics that prove the point. And then finally, is the elephant in the room the accreditation model of the vendors that stops us being agile and building these hybrid models? Because we have to, as a gold partner, say for Cisco, take a whole bunch of accreditation. We need a whole bunch of people. We take a whole bunch of costs. We have to have those people anyway. We want them to go do something. And then you've got some people who you want to do something as well. And do you think a hybrid accreditation model from the vendors might be an interesting way of us working together better? And the vendors therefore have to change the way they see things. So it's about a 97-part question, but I'll stop talking now.
Thank you.
I'll take the last part, so then these guys can take the first question. I think on accreditation, I think there is a lack of skill in the marketplace, frankly. The solutions are getting more complex. They're getting more targeting specific verticals, specific segments. So if you're not able to speak the language of the vertical, the segment, if you don't understand the in-depth solution, I mean, you just have no chance. So I think accreditation is needed. It's important. I think what maybe needs to be reinvented is a little bit the way it's delivered. It ties up a lot of resources. It ties up a lot of time. People on the bench, they invoice. So I think there is a job to do, which I think we all are working with our suppliers to change. But skills are needed.
Yeah, on the accreditations, maybe briefly on that one, I think we still carry a little bit of legacy. The skill sets are required, and the putting out a need to say, hey, we need you to invest in us. You need you to train yourself and build up. Let's fully understand that objective of the vendor that they're trying to support and provide a service level into the market that protects also their brand, right, and their opportunity. I mean, that's a very valid cause, and let's not question that. But I do think there are ways of partnering together that need to be looked at as a different way of providing the same service, and a very rigid model that says you need so many people, independent if that's actually truly needed, and all it does is produce costs, is not going to help anybody. I think the paranoia and the need right now, at least very clearly on the enterprise side, is how can we accelerate transformation, how can we accelerate growth? If we can put something together that points to those, I do believe that there's an open door within the vendors to talk about, are we providing the necessary original objective, or are we just meeting a KPI? I think the openness is there based on the need and the focus of how we actually do this. And by the way, the same goes on the operations side, that we can also find more efficient ways of working together to free up more to do on the other side.
Agree with your comment about distribution, the name distribution, but you know, that I'm sure will change over time. I don't think it accurately depicts what we do and our role in the channel today. Around the accreditation piece, I think we've got some examples in some smaller countries where exactly as you described, that's what happens. Distribution take on the mantle of investing and therefore scaling. At the end of the day, you know, a huge part of what we do is developing and investing in expertise that then scales in the channel. That's why it's one of the main reasons we exist. So in some smaller markets, we've got exactly that going on, but I think it could be promoted and expanded more than it is today. And then your comment about do we measure the impact of partnering on services, the answer is yes, with a small y. I think we could be more sophisticated about it. But what we are seeing is where we are partnering and creating levels of codependency, if you like, and higher degrees of relevance to each other through a services component to the relationship, we're seeing two things. One is we're seeing we measure customer engagement, so we're seeing higher customer engagement scores. We use a thing called Net Promoter Score. So we see higher levels of scores on Net Promoter from customers who are engaging us with services. And the other thing is we're seeing, again, to Simon's point, you can't just look at services, it's an end-to-end engagement, but we're seeing higher penetration levels, so higher levels of share of wallet in customers where we've got a strong services relationship.
Thank you for the question. Another question? Okay.
I'm Mike McGee, I'm a journalist. You guys all seem to be walking on eggshells talking about channel conflict. Do you think the vendors feel a bit threatened by you moving into services in such a big way?
I don't know. I don't think in our market we don't see a threat from the vendor side. I think more of the vendors is trying to say how do we engage you more from a services perspective. If you look at the different segmentations in the marketplace, I think we play different roles in different parts of the market. If I look at the enterprise space is probably more and more becoming the remit of the vendor direct or vendor partner direct in our economy, in our markets. But if you look at the mid-market and you start looking at the SMB market, that model changes completely, and they're more and more leaning on distribution to actually provide those services on behalf of themselves. And that's critical for us. So the mid-market and the SMB market is really the place where we see our role deepening and widening. So from our perspective, it's not a conflict as long as I think we understand who plays where and who does what in each of the markets. Because if we don't, then we create duplicated costs, whether it's between us and the vendor or us and the partner. And I think the whole model then becomes unsustainable.
Simon, you have a follow-up?
No, is the answer. And let me add some color to that. I seriously believe what I said a moment ago. What the vendors want right now is to accelerate the transformation where it's required to enable the growth. Want to find ways to make the core more productive so that the new can accelerate better. I don't believe vendors see us as a risk there. I think actually the opposite's the case. They'd like us to do more. They're actually asking us to be more engaged in the downstream sales and marketing process to help accelerate. I think it's different on the partner side. I think there is some anxieties there, and I think that's then up to you to decide who to speak to. But bottom line, I think the vendors is no. I think they'd like us to do more to accelerate the business, and I don't see a threat. If we're talking to a logistics manager and there's a logistics outsourcing agreement in our volume side of the business, that logistics manager may feel threatened. From an executive point, if it makes sense and it helps the growth or it reduces the cost, no.
Shifting topics, looking back at our database that I talked about in my opening, we noticed that over the last 2 years, 200 new vendors, it's another one of these wow statements, 200 new vendors have come into the database, come into the distribution system over the last 2 years. Wow, 200 new vendors. To me, that's a sign of the vitality of the technology industry and also an opportunity for all of you, resellers and vendors, to understand these new technologies, leverage them, partner with them. My question to the distribution team is, what new technologies are piquing your interest? Do you see have particular possibility as you move forward? Michael, why don't we start with you?
So thanks, Tim. And to go back to our theme of Internet of Things, I think we definitely are looking now into what kind of special services and differentiation do we need to go for in that space. So for Logicom emerging markets, I think it's still very basic Internet of Things applications that we go for. Connected home is still a big opportunity for us in distribution and for our channel partners. If we can put together some solutions around that and deliver them to the market, that will be, at least in the first 1 or 2 years, for me, that will be a success. Mm-hmm. In the rest of the, let's say, in industrial space and specific vertical space, I definitely believe that distribution has a role to play, and they, by bringing together an aggregation of products into a specific area. But again, I think that each distributor needs to choose one area and specialize, because if we do things in the same way, in a broadline way, it will not work. So that's how I see the IoT things taking off.
Okay. Anton, you have some comments?
Yeah, I think I would agree with connected home. And then I think the other one that we're trying to build capability and practice in is in the data analytics space, whether it be prescriptive, predictive, and descriptive, all those analytics capabilities. It's not a trivial exercise to build that capability, and I think the channel there is very different to what we normally used to, but I think it's going to be absolutely critical for us to build that as a practice going forward.
Joshua, particularly any new vendors that are piquing your interest?
I'm happy to answer if you ask my esteemed colleagues to leave the room. Yeah. I mean, distribution is an amplification of what happens in the market. So obviously we are all working with all the new technologies, the new solutions, whether it's flash, hyperconvergence, security is constant evolving. In our business, in Aero specifically, we are moving more towards solutions, a little bit outside of what we came from, so much more around big data analytics, as Anton was mentioning as well. So, but in general, I mean, there is a lot of disruption happening. There is a lot of new vendors coming. Steve was showing it yesterday. Hyperconvergence alone is hundreds of new vendors. So I think this is space to watch. Still small, but I'm sure it's going to grow.
Simon?
Sorry to change it again. I don't think it's a matter of collecting vendors, quite frankly. If I look at what we see in the base, and again, if I take Total Tech Data, it's a little bit different. You can expect us to continue to expand the portfolio as Total Tech Data, and that's what you would want from the aggregate business. If we look in the Aslan business, I think it's really going for depth. It's going for the solution. It's going for the enablement to be able to drive business outcome where you'll see expansion. Most of you in the enterprise space focus on a few vendors. And you've been expanding to complete the solution, but you're focusing on going deeper. And that's what we're trying to support. And then there's enabling levers to do that. Those are the things you're going to see us add. And of course, there's some very hot topic items out there. If you think of advanced security, you think of next generation data center, that's where dynamics happening. And we've all got it on our radar. I'm not giving away any secrets here. But I don't think it's the building out of a line card as much as it's the enabling of going deeper. Accelerating time to revenue by more complete solutions. Think of the whole promise of the cloud instead of the danger of the cloud. For a lot of organizations, that threshold of investment into a vertical solution becomes a lot lower, especially on the software side. I know we're all thinking about that, how we can enable that, and those are things where you'll probably see us expanding in the portfolio and allowing those solutions, building critical components that complete the enablement to be able to do that together.
I think, Tim, my response is similar to Simon's. At Avnet, I think we've tended to be, maybe from the outside, look a little bit more conservative about taking on some of the sort of shiny new technologies and vendors and suppliers that represent them. I think we've named 12 what we call core strategic suppliers inside our business, and they're core and strategic because we want to be relevant to them and we want them to be relevant to us. And we believe that they, not in their entirety, but largely they're strategic because they will shape the technology of today and in the midterm and the long term too. And so the vast majority of, some of the areas you were mentioning there, it's all flash arrays, it's hyper-converged, it's a software-defined anything, are kind of key technology areas that are being focused on right now, but many of our existing suppliers, support those technologies and develop them and in fact are leaders in their own field. We've signed Nimble. I think the only significant supplier that we've signed in the last 6 months is Nimble, but most of what we're doing is developing with our core strategic suppliers. And then really to just sort of round off the question, focusing in various solutions groups, converged infrastructure and data center, big focus around security and networking solutions, big focus around big data analytics, information management, big focus around software and cloud as a service, and then services generally to support both, if you like, the second platform business that we all kind of drive today, but also support some of the emerging third platform areas around IoT, around cloud, around social networking, mobility, collaboration, some of those areas. So.
Okay. On this subject, new vendors, new technologies from the floor, any questions? Okay. Mobile is a big topic, and the increase of mobility, the mobile technologies. The world has gone mobile. So on that, let me ask Simon and Anton, where do you see distribution playing, and open it up to anybody else who has a comment, but start with Simon and Anton on the mobile revolution, and how are you addressing the mobile revolution from Tech Data's point of view?
Well, it's on us. I mean, let's face it, just look at our own usage and how we actually do that, or think of the threat that it means. How many cloud services are used that are not controlled by IT that actually originate in a mobile device? I mean, these things are going together. Tech Data's got a very significant mobility business. Actually, the largest in Europe is Tech Data Mobile. So there's a whole, there's the handset business there, the services around it, the lifecycle services around it. That's one element of the solution if you want to play in this space. And you, I believe, on the enterprise side, have to play in this space because mobility is there. I was at World Mobile Congress in Barcelona this year in March. And it was full, not of handset suppliers, of software providers. It was full of solution providers to enable, if you like, the mobile economy which is happening. And it's not just about breaking down applications into a mobile device, it's actually enabling things that mobile devices can do. Think of Apple and IBM making their announcement, Apple and Cisco making their announcement, VMware buying AirWatch, IBM buying FiberLink. The mobile device management market in the UK alone, there's like 94 different solutions out there, mobile device management. There is a requirement to get the shadow IT coming from mobile under control. That's a great enterprise opportunity and a challenge. To be able to do that, you need the appropriate expertise in that space. But then again, if it's part of the solution, you need to understand how the mobile world works and how the life cycle can be supported around it.
Anton?
Yeah, I agree with Simon. I think it is all of those things. Our approach has been one of more trying to understand what the end customer really wants out of mobility. And in that sense, we couldn't tackle all the markets, so we had to go to specific verticals and try and find a solution with our vendor partners and our channel partners to that problem or the need that they've got in their business. That's our approach to it. It's not so much about the device per se, but it's more about the whole mobility stack and how do we provide it. Which elements of the mobility stack do we utilize to actually solve the customer's problem? And again, in a collaborative process with our partners, selected partners and selected vendors.
Anyone else comment on that? Okay. From the floor, mobility questions. All right, for my last question, I'm going to ask the panel to talk about the demand environment. So you saw that chart that I put up showing that Europe, after a tremendous 2014, slowed down a little bit, but is now gaining strength again. And so what do you see on the horizon for the next 6-12 months, and what are you doing? What's your advice to the vendors and resellers in the room how to maximize in this coming environment?
Yeah, so I would say that the overall 2015 has been a good year. We had a slowdown in PC sales, but everything else is quite healthy. I think there's still a lot of strong opportunity in communications and mobility. Again, from the Logicom perspective of the emerging markets of Middle East and Southeast Europe, we faced a lot of geopolitical challenges right now that are pushing demand on the other side. But I think overall, there's a lot of opportunity with the new vendors, with the new industries and technologies that are out there to go and again have a good growth over the year. That's how I see that. I think it's positive.
All right. Anton, in South Africa and broader African market.
Yeah, I think we face, we've got a lot of currency volatility. If you look at the rand, it's depreciated about 25 to 30% in the last year, and it's now really starting to bite in terms of demand. It's got a cumulative effect, so we are seeing, especially in the PC markets and the server markets, really declining in unit terms. So we're facing a tough market because our economy is also not really firing on all cylinders. Around us, I think there's a lot of African economies that's growing really fast, but they're coming off a very low base. They face the same currency issues, and now the oil price is starting to hit places like Nigeria, Angola, Mozambique. Those places are really getting hit hard by the oil price. So we're seeing a tough phase, but despite that, I think our security markets are really growing quite well. We're seeing 18-20% growth in the security space. The cloud business is really starting to take off, especially in the small to medium enterprise markets. So there is pockets of the newer technologies that's actually growing a lot faster than what we are used to in the traditional space. So the traditional business is under pressure from a unit perspective.
All right, Jesper, thank you. Anton.
No, I agree. I think overall, demand is healthy. It's probably as concrete as we can be. I think it depends a lot on your portfolio. So which areas are you in? We are strong in network security. That's a market which is growing, as Anton is mentioning. It's reinventing itself all the time, as we heard from Cisco. And but overall, there's good growth. Of course, currency have an impact, as we know, both operationally, but also on top line and bottom line. But overall, it's good demand.
Okay, thank you.
I think of the aggregate, if you look at European stats, it looks good. If you break it down in country, it's not that predictable, firstly. So be careful. It's not as stable as it was. You look at GDP growth in Germany, it went boom within a quarter. Netherlands a quarter before went boom. Europe looked fine. Individual markets didn't look good. So from a vendor side, it's a message of predictability in terms of targets, where we operate. And I think from a partner side, it's great that we have a demand swell and a rising tide raises all ships. But don't mistake that for a sense of we can stay where we are. We can stay where we are and feel in comfort and miss the opportunity and the requirement to go ahead and change. We've got to get more productive in the core, more simple, and at the end of the day, cheaper and more predictable so that we can accelerate the new. The new has the opportunity, but the new comes also with change. And the further growth going forward, to a very high degree, will be having to come from these things that we step up to. So I would say, yes, there's a rising tide, which is good. Use it as an opportunity to work together to improve the core while the things are good, and accelerate and emphasize the accelerating of the new. And I think there's real opportunities out there as we go about that together, which is good. The predictability of the overall market, I think, is less than it has been, and the underlying trend and requirement to progress and change is still there.
Thank you. Graham?
And finally, from me, I would say that actually I think the demand environment is healthy. I'd echo that. I think at Avnet we've been growing last 3 quarters double-digit growth, which is very nice. I think we've won share and won back some lost share, if that makes sense. Technology-wise, definitely network security, same as Jesper. Strong demand around storage and converged infrastructure for us. I'd highlight those particular areas. And then, as Simon says, it's a different demand environment across Europe. It always has been, always will be. Currently, what would I highlight? I'd highlight Turkey and the Adriatics as being not necessarily huge markets, but high growth. I think Eastern Europe's a bit spotty for us right now. There's been a nice bounce back in Italy and Spain, having, after the financial crisis, they're bouncing back nicely. And I'd say UK, big market for all of us, is kind of stable, but not doing anything exciting. I think some of the heat's come out of the UK market from my perspective.
Any questions from the floor? We're running out. This is to close it out. Any burning question that's been on your mind? You've been dying to ask it. I may rue that offer.
It's not about IoT, just a quick question. So at Chambers' last Cisco Partner Conference, he stood in front of the channel and said, a third of you guys won't be here in 2 to 3 years because you won't make it. Do you have just a view of what the relationship between distribution and the channel looks like, say, in 3 years from now? Do you see any major transformations, or do you think it's what you've just discussed extrapolated for the next couple of 3 years?
I'll maybe give that a quick comment. It's an interesting point. We do talk about it inside Avnet, because I think there's a lot more than 3 types, but you could categorize our partners into those who are kind of born in the cloud, kind of net new startups. There's those who are definitely transitioning to the cloud and to the third platform, and those where we've got some concerns whether they will transition and they'll sort of get left behind. So I think inevitably all of those 3 categories do exist and will exist, and our job is frankly to help, is to find the born-in-the-cloud partners of the future, but also help our partners transition to the new technology areas and help them find, or they determine where they want to specialize, and we help them make that migration. But I think there will be a number of, and particularly, if you look at the maturity of the industry, there's quite a few reseller partners out there today who are kind of more lifestyle. They've done what they've done for a long time. They've got a legacy business and it doesn't look like it's going to transition anytime soon. And that's a concern.
I think the answer to that question lies in what the channel partners will need to do in 3 years' time, and you can derive it from there. I think you'll see the channel increase specialization while increasing enablement to do more things. And I know it sounds a contradiction, but I think we see the specialization and the depth going up, while at the same time a breadth across the technology is required to complete solutions. So if that is the case, then I think you will see closer relationships, definitely on the operational side, because there's operational efficiency that can improve. And I think you'll see front office engagement being more supportive around your core proposition, trying to support your proposition with augmenting sets of services and engagement to be able to go forward. That will happen predominantly with those that we're working with in a closer way. And yes, others may not be wanting to work with us in a closer way because they choose a competitor or they just don't open up. I think the guys who do open up will have the benefit both of operational efficiency and will have a higher degree of automation together, also with the vendors, where we can create some leverage. And I think we'll be supporting that specialization and build out because that's something we believe need to do, and so therefore that marks what we can do.
Yeah, I echo what's been said. I think the channel will remain relevant. Partners, distributors, and so on and so forth. However, that said, we all need to evolve. We all need new skills. We need to learn how to sell based on business outcome rather than technological skills and so on. And some of those, to Graham's point, will probably not make that leap. But I believe majority of the channel will, and there are new partners coming from kind of add-on areas like online marketing, and so I think no, channel will remain very relevant.
Yeah, I think everything's been said, but for us also the challenge we have in our markets is the legacy. The new guys coming into the market, if we look at our cloud business at the moment, we get 4 new partners for every old partner that transitions. So and I think what we've done is we always go back to volume as a segmentation. We tend to. And we've got to change our segmentation models completely to understand customers. There's diamonds sitting in the smallest customers, and we don't understand that. So for us, that's in our case. So we need to understand how we take those new partners on board, and each of the swimming lanes that I think Graham mentioned, each of them requires different things from us, and we've got to be flexible enough to actually address all 3 of those swimming lanes with almost a different business model for each. And that, I think, is a big challenge because now you've got to start managing an and model, which is not so simple.
All right. I'd like to thank you all for coming. Hope you found this valuable, and please give our panel a warm round of applause for their candor and answers. Thank you.